We should talk about art today.
You think? I think we should talk about art every day because it's so important and they don't teach it in schools enough.
Malarkey. I think we should talk about art today because we have guests that know some stuff about art. Hey, look, it's my parents, and I'm not stealing their kitchen from them so they can actually go get their coffee whenever they want.
People still talking about how much they'd love seeing you on the show, Mama and Papa Brogan.
Oh, that was one of our most viewed shows.
I know. Well, one of them. They're going to steal my job.
Oh, my golly. So who do we have on the show today, Kerry?
Artists talking about art. We have Mike Sorgatz, Janice McDonell, and Elizabeth Meggs. They started 2021, which is
their ages.
Which is a group show of artists. They came together during COVID and kept it going. It was a year and a half straight. They didn't miss even 1 week of getting these artists together to connect via Zoom every week. And they have a book and they have a group exhibit. We have lots to talk about.
There's art.
Hi, everyone. Tim Kitzer from NBA Jam and NFL Blitz, welcoming you to The Backpack Show. Your hosts, Chris Brogan, Kerry Gorgone, Boom Shakalaka.
Backpack Show.
Your parents do any art while you were there?
Oh, they're incredible artists. You know, my mom's a wire wrap jewelry artist from back in the day.
I have one of her pieces.
There you go. And my dad can do a reasonably competent stick figure. So, yeah. So we...
but he played poker like nobody's business.
There you go. He's art with cards. You should see him whip a card. It'll always...
He's so disappointed in me. He's trying to teach me poker, and I was like, I don't know. I'm terrible at this.
I got a new lesson about a whole bunch of new kinds of games like high-low poker and all that, and you know what to bet on which. And
oh my gosh,
if you have suited kings, you got to really ease the pot out. That's all I remember.
I'm sure he's like, stick with the vanilla, Kerry. That's about what you're good at. That's like when my mom took her driver's test, and the guy said, stick to a nice automatic. Don't try for the stick notes. I'll pass you.
Oh my gosh. All right. Well, let's grab everybody out here. I'm gonna do my best. This will be the worst transition ever, but there's Elizabeth, there's Mike, and then Janice. Hello.
Oh, there we go. He likes everybody in just the order they were in when we were backstage before the show.
It's my little OCD, and so I was like, where were they again? I think Elizabeth was up top.
Just where you're supposed to be.
Well, welcome, art people.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
Look, art is supposed to be a very solo thing, and you're supposed to be very sad and lonely and miserable and broke. What made you decide you were supposed to get together and be artists?
Well, I think we're 2 out of 3 of those things. I'll let you figure out which. I actually started the call sort of in the early days of the pandemic. It was when things were starting to shut down, and it became apparent that we weren't all going to be back to our regular lives in like 2 or 3 weeks. So I started to come up with a plan. Like, I'm going to go nuts if I'm sitting in my apartment alone, and I'll drive Eleanor crazy. So I just wanted to gather a group of friends together and just have a chance to meet and chat and hang out and, you know, kind of forget about all the madness that was going on around us. And it just started from there.
How on earth did we forget to say that, by the way, our past guest and friend, Eleanor Traubman, who's brought us 2 or 3 guests so far, this is... it's also married to Mike, so this is why we have the 2020-21.
Eleanor Traubman of My Local Heroes.
Yes, who's delivered us many heroes. So if this wasn't going on, Elizabeth, what would you be doing instead?
Well, I live alone, and I was totally isolated in my apartment when the pandemic hit, and it was such a relief get an email from Mike. He was like, hey guys, how are you doing with the lockdown? Do you want to connect over Zoom? And it was like a lifeline to me. I just thought, yes, absolutely. And so, and a lot of us have known each other for years from shared art studio space. But I found it so helpful immediately to hear what other artists were going through. At first, a lot of us were just like, I can't make it work right now. I'm just like in shock and staring at my television set and trying to figure out what's happening, just trying to stay alive. Here in New York City, things became very scary at the beginning of the pandemic. So I think, you know, we were having trouble getting groceries or finding grocery delivery. We didn't want to open our doors. And so it was such a relief to see familiar faces on the computer screen. It lifted my spirits instantly. I felt less scared. I felt like I'm not totally alone writing this out. So I have to thank Mike for getting in touch with all of us. Thank you, Mike.
Mike was getting lonely too, I bet. Everybody was. Remember, we're like, we're going to lock down for a couple weeks. Okay, a couple more weeks. Maybe just like 4 more weeks.
And another thing is like the group just sort of grew from there. So we sort of had a core handful of people, and then they're like, well, I'd like to invite this person. And so it was very much an open door policy, like anyone was welcome, and there was no real agenda. I mean, the whole point was just to be able to connect with each other.
Yeah. So what did you talk about? I mean, obviously like art, but I mean, what else did you talk about?
Well, I mean, it wasn't like an art networking group, which some people thought it might be. So we sort of self-selected out of that, but it was really about just connecting on a human, everyday level. And of course, you know, we're all artists; we enjoy art, so that would come up in different ways. But it was more about just connection with each other.
Janice, what's the difference? Like, when you get on these Zoom calls, no one wants a Zoom call anymore, by the way. We're all done. We're sick of them. But, you know, when this started, at least it must have felt good. What's the difference between one of these meetings compared to the rest of the week, and what else you got to get done?
I think, you know, a little bit of accountability. You know, you talk to your friends about what you're going to do that week, whether it was art related or when we really started getting into vaccines or just safety. And then it was like somebody to check back the next week. So you really, you had this point in the week that you wanted to get to, so you can just sort of, you know, share your life with someone or hear about, you know, someone you care about's life. And so, yeah, it was like a bright spot in the week.
Did either or any of you change your medium because of this kind of a process? Because the one thing I was thinking about is if someone's working on things that take months and months and months to do, that might not necessarily be, you know, good for these kinds of calls. Did anyone decide to change their medium so they could bring stuff to it? Elizabeth?
I definitely did. I had been working on a 4-foot oil painting over at the studio complex, and it's a big space with 100 art studios. And suddenly when everything became really scary, I didn't feel safe going over there. And so I abandoned that painting. I'm just getting back to it now, actually. And so I switched to watercolor on paper, small works at home, and then a lot of digital work. So the piece I did for the book is ultimately refined on my computer in Adobe Photoshop and Illustrator. So but that, I think adaptability is something artists really have to have anyway through life. So adaptability helped in that case. And I think I'm trying to stay positive about it. Like, hey, I brushed up on some computer skills and watercolor. So that was fun.
And now it's a Facebook group as well. So is this just for sharing each other's work, keeping each other updated?
That was more for the show itself, that the exhibition we had, just so we could document it more. The gallery isn't open to the public. We can invite people in, but we have to sort of, you know, monitor how many people come through. And so this was a way to sort of share it outside our little world. And we have a walkthrough of the show, a video on our Facebook page. So it was just something that to share with other people, just to sort of acknowledge what we had put together.
People already have a really tough time experiencing art. So, you know, a lot of people will go to a gallery. They won't know what to do, right? So if you've ever seen someone dragged to a gallery, they're always like me. You know, you don't, what do you do? So I wonder, was that even more exacerbated by the fact that this is pandemic times and some of these people just needed to do something? How did the attendance go? And like, what was that experience like with the attendees?
For the Zoom or for the show?
Both. But for the show specifically, just because I was thinking about, you know, it might have attracted people who weren't necessarily, you know, of your world.
Well, it really wasn't. We had a reception that we invited all the artists within our bigger studio building, and our friends and family. But we did not have a lot of outside people, and so we didn't have the person kind of coming in from the street just to cool off. It was just people that kind of knew what was going on here in the space. For the Zoom, it was very casual. As Mike mentioned, there was a core group, and people would kind of drop in every now and then people hit it every single week. So it really was up to what was going on in their lives. And with people with children, they didn't define their own lives. The kids did. So
yeah, I'll say the whole project started as a call, and then the book and the show came out of us wanting to sort of commemorate our time together. And so we were kicking around some ideas and came up with this idea of having an artist book where everyone just contributes a piece to the book. And then Janice submitted it to the gallery. So that's how we sort of expanded the audience on that. But it all happened very organically.
So did the pandemic make people want to work or need to work more on their art, or did some people find it kind of dried up their creative juice for a while?
I think at first people were struggling, but then I found personally that it helped to really get into creative work. Like that would be the time when I felt happiest, when I was focused on making a piece of artwork rather than everything else that I had no control over.
All that, yeah.
Exactly. And I think that also, like Janice said, accountability, it helped to be in touch with people, and actually be in a Zoom. You should change out of your pajamas at least on Wednesday.
At least on top.
At least a shirt, And so I think, and we had a lot of fun too, just laughing. We joked about things. We would do sort of social events. We had a holiday party. I remember Mike had a bow tie on for that. So just trying to replace so much that we lost, really, too. And I think that is another thing. Most art galleries shut down. Here in New York, it's normally a very lively situation. There are art openings all the time, and you connect, you do studio visits, and so everything just shut down. And I think just to be connected and sort of do something as a group, I do believe it helped a lot of us. I know one artist hadn't been able to make work for several years because of a studio displacement, and I think this group, he told us that it helped him just to connect and be part of this, and he made the first piece he'd made in 5 years. So I think overall it was incredibly positive for all of us.
So I think deadlines help. They don't love deadlines, they need deadlines. And they were all self-imposed. And for the book especially, Mike kept giving people a little more time, and then finally he was just like laying down the law.
So I think making a living as an artist is not known to be easy. It couldn't have gotten easier during the pandemic. So how did each of you manage to get through that, and have your creative work and, your basic life needs met?
I think just hustling, like we always have to, but in different ways, adaptability. Just another thing I've noticed is, in art, you don't have to wait for the opportunity, you make the opportunity. And I think that's exactly what we did here. We all made the work, then Mike did a great job designing the book. So that self-initiative, the self-initiated project, I think is key. We're lucky as artists, if you're something like an actor or you're in a symphony orchestra, you need that institution, you need the stage, you need the audience. But artists can kind of work on their own. So even if you don't have a gig or a gallery exhibit waiting, you can get to work. And even if you're just like stockpiling work or developing work, there is that self-initiated aspect to it. So, and I'm really proud of the group that we pulled this together. So it helped everyone, I think.
Yeah, having a group show with 18 artists is insane. Usually it's like a handful of artists, like 3 or 5, trying to get, it's like herding cats, 18 artists to get all their artwork together at the same time in the same place. It's a lot of work. Janice was a curator on that, did a fantastic job on the show. You can see on the YouTube, there's a video that goes around there. It was a tremendous effort.
But it's almost as hard as getting the authors together, Christopher.
I think herding cats is actually easier than herding artists, but
that's simple. Open a can of tuna and put it down.
Yeah.
Well, it's not that far from artists. It's just a bottle of wine instead, and you're good.
Yes.
I think it's a miracle, really, that everyone got along as well as we did. So I predict future projects. I would love to. I'm like, we should open and start a publishing house or something. Yeah.
Well, everyone sort of pitched in with their talents. We had Ward Yoshimoto as a photographer. He took pictures of everyone's work. It was just amazing. It was a real group effort. We had a big PR machine going on there to get in touch with different people, and we had an installation group.
Our artist talk group. They orchestrated everything tech wise, and making sure it all flowed. It was really interesting. So many, you talk about we have so many other skills than just being artists. We have day jobs and professional photographers and designers and video people and copywriters, and it was just amazing. We got to see a little bit of everyone else's little skill set and utilize it. It was pretty cool.
I have one question, then we're going to run to ads. The question I was thinking about was, so this is work done during a pandemic, but this none of it that I saw immediately off the top was purely pandemic art, and I didn't go through every single piece. Is there work that's going to come out of this for any of you or all of you that's going to be your reaction to the pandemic?
Some of the people did actually pretty directly address the pandemic. Spencer Marola, it looks like a necklace of forget-me-nots. They're actually made with face masks, surgical masks. It looks like this very delicate chain of flowers, but as you look closer, there you go.
Gotcha.
So it's a little more subtle in some of them, but
to me, it takes a little while longer to process, like to do that kind of art in the medium, like in the middle of it all, in media res, as they say. That might be a little tough. What's your thought on that? Is there like a timeline to when you're going to be able to do it?
Personally, I find stuff popping up in my art from years ago all the time. So I'm sure it's probably marked us in ways that we don't even comprehend yet.
Doomed to appear. All right, listen, I need to put you all backstage for just like 60 seconds, maybe a tiny bit more. Boop, boop, and Janice. Boop.
Boop.
Okay, I probably can't do that twice in a row. I was so good the first time, but we'll try it. All right, let me read some ads, everybody. Hey, you want to run your own cool video show? See brogan.me/StreamYard. It is the best software to do that kind of a thing.
Get your own artist collective.
Damn straight. Hey, do you like our voices but not our faces? You can listen to our podcast anywhere there's a podcast. That's because we use castos.com to be our podcast host. They put peas in your podcast. Hey, where am I?
Hey.
Oh, hey, do you ever want a .online domain? You could have one for 2020-21. Just go to cbrogan.me/online and use the code Chris in all caps.
All caps.
$1 for a year for that domain. Isn't that a swell deal? Hey, if you want to compare that deal with other deals, you could go to presearch.com. Stick it to the man. Don't use Google for your search engine. Use presearch.com. It's the best. Presearch.com allows you to do a bunch of things, including you can actually, instead of people paying money for ads on there, you use your cryptocurrency, part of their platform, to stake or own out. So if you want, artists, if you Google artists and it lands on your site, so you go to Presearch, you go to presearch.com, you can have it go right to your website. It's pretty cool. And we have one new sponsor for the week. We have my friend Mitch Jackson. Mitch Jackson is California's #1 leading trial attorney. He's also Mr. Social Media himself. StreamingLawyer.com is one of his several projects. He has a mastermind group. He has all kinds of other things on the go. Mitch said, I'm going to take a risk and I'm going to sponsor my buddy Chris Brogan's show. And so here we are. So streaminglawyer.com. Mitch Jackson is almost at every single conference where you can see people talking about things like social media and Clubhouse and all that sort of a thing.
Streaming law is more fun than it sounds, I promise.
There you go. And he has his Legal Minds Mastermind. So thanks, Mitch Jackson.
As somebody who has to talk about law and has to make it fun, I know it's possible.
That's right. So I got myself an Elizabeth, a Mike, and a Janice, and I did it again. So welcome
back.
back.
All in the right order.
I feel like a magic show. I feel like the worst David Blaine ever.
Look what I've created! The very same thing.
You say that, we found out during our Zoom talks that one of the artist's father is a magician. We found out a lot of things about each other through the year of talking. One night she was like, by the way, my dad's a magician. That's Elise Putnam, and she described that, and we were all like, wait, we didn't know, you had never mentioned that. So all kinds of things came out through the year. Trying to think, do we have any deep, dark secrets that anyone revealed?
Well, I want to piggyback off that because Elise actually came up with our title. And to your earlier question, Chris, the 2020-21 is not just the pandemic. It's just that whole year and 2 year and a half span of just an election that just is coming at us all the time. The just social justice protests. I mean, was all swirling around us while the pandemic was happening. So some of the people are responding to different parts of those sort of troubling times, I guess.
I'd almost forgotten about that stuff.
I know.
There was some election?
Yeah. Elizabeth wrote this wonderful intro to the book that when we read it, it was first it was tearing me up. But it really just sort of, covered that whole arc. And we're like, oh yeah, that happened. And it's just, you forget because you move on. We're human beings. We're built to survive.
Yeah, you have to forget some of that stuff or you never do it again. Like having kids, you have one, you got to forget how awful the experience of having a kid is until birthing a kid, till the next time. When it's too late to turn back. That's what you do.
Vincent's piece, I don't know if you all can see it. He responded directly to January 6th. So his is a direct thing. It's an ink drawing of people running, waving flags. It's sort of sound and fury signifying nothing in this big crowd of people. So some work really specifically addresses what we were experiencing.
How diverse is the group?
Pardon?
How diverse is the group? You must have had a lot of different perspectives and a lot of different creative expression and just a lot of different emotions in that mix.
Yeah, I mean, we're a pretty broad age range. I mean, we all are centered in New York mostly, so it's kind of, I guess, probably a little bit more cohesive in that way. But yeah, it's fairly diverse group of people.
Yeah, our ages ranged from the 30s up to the late 70s, which I think is wonderful that we strengthened those ties. Yeah, very diverse. I don't know that we were really politically diverse. We didn't really get into that. If someone
that'd be tough because you're choosing who you want to spend time with in a pandemic on Zoom, and it's that's tough. I get it.
Mm-hmm.
You do. So is there another book in this? Can we expect another show, more like future collaborations?
I don't know. As we mentioned before, I mean, it was such an amazing effort with everyone, all hands on deck. It felt like at the time it was kind of exhausting and exhilarating, but it was like, I guess we could do anything. There's such a deep skill set here.
I actually have been trying to get the group to do synchronized roller skating. I've tried to get people to come, but I don't know that will pan out. I'm still.
Oh boy, we would love to see that.
That doesn't get on YouTube.
I hope everyone walks away, and maybe it's not our whole entire group, but that I think a lot of artists in the bigger art community, they want a community, and I think it's really easy to do that. Hi, Dean.
Sorry, Christopher's fighting with me for the buttons.
That's usually Kerry's button, and I touched it.
He hired me to do one job.
I was
To push buttons.
marveling at the absolute lack of comments coming in, and Dean had one, and I was like, I have to touch this button.
Stop it! Stop touching my buttons.
Well, let's talk about that for a second. So artists are all known for not quite exactly following direction. That's why you're supposed to be artists. Like, that's the whole point. But like, if Mike was project managing this book and all that, there's a lot of times where there's 18 or more like really solid mindset people who want to go their own route. How was it like blending? How was it kind of giving up your holding of the conch to give to somebody else every now and again?
I think it went pretty well. I think that's kind of I don't know. Artists are definitely independent and have their own visions, but we're also very collaborative. And there's definitely times where, people have to come together to do a show. I mean, a lot of the mechanisms outside of the studio really rely on people gathering together and helping each other out, showing up for events. So that is sort of maybe a less romantic vision of the artist. There's actually a lot of hard work that goes into all this stuff. So, there's, I don't know, maybe 20 to 50% of brooding in your studio, and the rest is like hustling. So it went very well. And, the project was very open too. So there was a very general theme to it, but, we were very flexible with things. There were certain deadlines that we wanted to hit, but we weren't really editing people's work or anything like that. So it went pretty well.
Yeah, I think the fact that each person could do whatever they wanted with their double page spread. So that freedom, I think, helped deal with our anti-establishment impulses. Absolutely. And also, if we were getting too many emails or a little stressed, our group would rickroll each other in emails. So that helped lighten it up. If things were getting serious, suddenly there'd be that link and Rick Astley singing to us.
Janice, how many emails before you give up on getting an artist to do what it is you want them to do?
They weren't that bad. I think, sort of what Mike was saying, so many of us have done like our own shows, and you do so much work, and either it's social media, promotions, email blasts, just to promote. If someone else does that for you, you are so appreciative. And if you feel like they're competent and they're good at it, you're like, oh yes, that's the mother lode. And so I think that's sort of the general. I mean, everyone loved Mike's design. He did like 5 or 6 covers, and it was really hard for us to decide because they were so good. So you're just so grateful that all these people are bringing these skills in. Ward, who took so many of the photos. I mean, he's an amazing photographer, and it's like I can't take a photo of my painting the way Ward can, and it's just like, oh, thank you. And so it's that level of gratitude that sort of circumvented all the kind of like backfighting you might expect, but there wasn't any of that.
You could have done like Entertainment Weekly alternate covers.
Yeah.
Maybe on the next run. There is a Rick Astley cover too.
I think sometimes there's a stereotype of artists being egotistical or kind of pretentious, but that's really not true. Most artists I know are pretty humble because they've been through a lot of struggle and had to work very hard. And I'm not really a fan of ego trips, and we really didn't have anyone who was on an ego trip in the group. Everyone was really humble and open to being together, and so that was lovely, I think, definitely.
I had one last question. Do you ever, through these processes, decide to swap media? Do you ever does Janice look at something that's done in physical form and say, oh, I'm going to totally make a model right now? Or does that ever stretch around? Does anyone swap the medium just because of the experience?
Oh, definitely. One of the projects, a lot of us artists participated earlier in 2020, I guess, was the the USPS, the United States Postal Service blah, blah, show, where we collaborated with another artist and then submitted that work. And these pieces traveled around, but I did more sort of sculptural stuff, but also included painting because I was collaborating with Ward Yoshimoto, who's very, very sculptural kind of pieces. So it's like fun to get out of your medium. But then after I was done, I went right back. So.
I think the artist Sima, who's in our group, for her exhibition piece, she created a sculpture that included Amazon delivery boxes, and that definitely was because of the situation. She was like, I'm getting all these boxes. So
nice.
Yeah, I think certain artists definitely ended up swapping and changing things through this. But again, that adaptability helped everyone. So
I ended up playing Jenga with the Amazon boxes in the garage. Like when I needed to ship something or I needed a box, I was like, one of these is going to work. See if I can get it.
Well, we are at this part of our show.
Oh, and here's our person of the day. Kaboom!
I don't know. It's a bit of a super quiet audience today. So you know who I'm going to give it to? I'm going to give it to newcomer Dean.
Hey.
Hey.
So that entitles you to one free apple, Dean. You just have to go down to the bodega, grab yourself an apple. Kerry would probably make sure you wash it first. I don't have such requirements.
And bake it into a tart.
Yep, that'd be nice. All right. And now we're at a part of the show where we ask one question we've asked every single guest. So everybody from Sir Mix-a-Lot to Sister Anne Flanagan to Mistress Harley has answered this question. What goes in your backpack? Now, this could be something physical, like an avocado. It could be something metaphorical, like hope for the future. Hey, Kerry, what's a good example of something physical someone could put in a backpack?
A book you hate, because eventually you'll read it if it's the only book you have, and you'll learn something from it. That's from Whiskey Nate.
A book we'll hate, and then she holds up 2020-21. And then
you won't hate it.
No.
And then what's an example of something metaphorical someone could put in a backpack? Any ideas?
Kindness, I think.
Oh, that's probably a good one. Kindness is good. All right, let's start with Janice. What goes in that backpack for you?
Well, physical art supplies. That's an easy one for me. And I think, community.
Oh, community is a goodie. Mm-hmm. Elizabeth, what do you have for the backpack today?
I think I would put in a pair of roller skates, but that's symbolic. It's symbolic because it reflects a lot of the things I need. They allow for creativity, fun, a healthy lifestyle, positivity, adaptability. Also, when you're skating, you just feel a lot of gratitude. As you're falling and getting back up, that's persistence, resilience, and then just a whole lot of love that you can bring to skating. So love, positive energy. So, and also they can help you escape if you need to. So
I like it. Bad guide, you roll. What do you got, Mike? What goes in the backpack?
I think I'm going to piggyback off Janice and say I'd bring my friends. It would have to be a large metaphorical backpack, I suppose.
Or small friends.
honey, I shrunk my friends. If you're show me anything, it's like, with the right people by you can get through just about anything. So
that's true.
Not that you asked me, says Dean, but I used to carry a picture of B. Arthur circa Maud era in my backpack for many years till mysteriously it disappeared. I don't even know what to say to that, Dean.
Dean, someone's roommate's a bitch. That's what I just learned.
Is that Golden Girls? Is that what Dean is into?
Well, he's saying Maud era.
To even further back.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's not quite that fetish. It's like a little earlier than that.
Yeah, my grandmother used to watch the Golden Girls a lot, though, and she had a lot of opinions on how those women were or weren't because she was probably contemporary of them. And I'll tell you, the one thing she said about Rue McClanahan that always stuck with me